Hello, YouTube. My name is Plazukas, and I have an unprecedented thing to do because I've done an early review of Crimson Desert. I'm actually going to create a new one that's more representative, not of the game that I played, but of the context that was provided by the PR representative, Will J. Powers, that most likely there will be co op added to this game, multiplayer added to this game, DLCs added to this game, and in that spirit, I need to do a completely new review with that context in mind. Here it is. Crimson Desert wants to be a sweeping prestige single player epic, and visually, it absolutely can be. But once the spectacle fades, what you're left with is an open world that never escalates. And that's a problem you can't brute force with graphics. Developed by Pearl Abyss and the team behind Black Desert Online, Crimson Desert carries MMO DNAs in its bones. The map design, the regional structure, the combat density, the faction camps, everything about it feels like it was built for shared chaos. But it's single player only. No multiplayer mode, no co op layer, no mod support. Which means when the systems start feeling thin, then there's nothing waiting behind the curtain to deepen them. Enemies do respawn. Technically, the world isn't empty, but once you clear a region's story arc and side objectives, the threat level collapses. When you return, enemies feel trivial. They don't scale meaningfully, they don't evolve, they don't retaliate. They're there, they're just easy, and that changes everything. Open world needs friction, they need escalation, they need some sense that revisiting old territory still carries risk. Crimson Desert doesn't escalate, it plateaus. Once you understand the combat system, you effectively mastered it, and because there's only one difficulty mode, the mastery never gets tested. Let's be fair, combat is flashy, there's weight to it, physicality. You can feel Pearl Abyss's tech pushing dynamic animation, blending, and environmental interaction. There are cinematic finishers that look phenomenal. But depth comes from resistance. With no higher difficulty settings, no adaptive scaling, and no meaningful endgame pressure, combat becomes performance art. You're not fighting for survival, you're going through the motions. And when enemies respawn weaker than your current power curve, they become practice dummies. The visual fidelity is impressive, but you're always aware of the ceiling. It's not unplayable, it's just not premium. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Crimson Desert feels like a world waiting for something. The geography is massive. The camps are structured like MMO grind zones. The faction layouts feel like they were meant to support player-driven chaos. But there's no multiplayer. And without mods, the community can't evolve it. So what you get is a massive world that doesn't change, doesn't push back hard over time, and doesn't offer meaningful replay hooks. It's static, beautiful, but static. Narratively, there are solid character beats. The cinematic presentation is strong, some arcs land emotionally, but pacing suffers because gameplay tension doesn't support narrative stakes. When you revisit dangerous territories and sweeping through them effortlessly, it uncuts the world building. Threat needs to scale with narrative urgency. Here, it doesn't. Crimson Desert isn't empty, it's easy, and that's worse. An empty world can be fixed with content. A world with no difficulty ceiling requires systematic redesign. Without multiple difficulty options, scaling systems, or a robust endgame loop, the experience flattens long before the credits roll. Crimson Desert is visually ambitious, technically impressive in places, cinematically confident, but it lacks escalation. Enemies respawn, they just don't threaten you. Combat looks intense, it just rarely feels dangerous. The world is massive, it just doesn't evolve. This isn't a broken system, it's a restrained one, and that restraint is the last thing a massive open world action game should be known for. Now, everything I said in my previous review still stands, but I needed to add the context because now we know that this game will most likely have an online component. And part of the reason why this game wasn't able to be converted to a single player game was because they still have this online tendency to them. They basically want to sell you Black Desert online, offline, and then have it go back to online. And that to me is a severe miscalculation of not only the community, but priorities. And therefore, I have to rescore Crimson Desert a 7 out of 10 with a huge asterisk. If you play this game as a single player game for 20 to 50 hours and you leave, yes, you're going to get your money's worth. And therefore, it is an 8.5. If you're willing to stay here longer than that, if you're going to be trying to get looped into the systems or the new characters that are going to be presented, the DLCs, the expansions, the online components, the microtransactions, you are going to waste your life and your money, and both of which should not have been the initial goal in this game, and you have been warned. My name is Bazookas. Thanks for watching this review. Please dislike it and unsubscribe. Goodbye.